waited. Every event set in motion. Every pawn put into play. All to claim the power slumbering within your world. The soul of Azeroth. Wounded, vulnerable, yet teeming with potential. Potential that I will use to eradicate this flawed reality. Death claims the soul of your world. Now, bear witness, mortals, to eternity's end.
Oh, all that was missing was the cackle. Oh, was that really high? Quick reaction to that. The Jailer is one of the most fucked up villains in that, you know, from the not from the player standpoint. From the player standpoint, this guy's a goofball. From the character standpoint, what I found to be kind of interesting about the Jailer is that he's like super gaslighting, because the way that the way that I as a player look at it, I look at the Jailer as like this bumbling dude who's tried out all these different ideas and one finally worked, you know, to get him to where he wants to go. But then the way he presents himself to the characters who don't know any better, they just see like this dude who has been planning this thing for like a bajillion years. And they're like, okay, this is it. You know, we got to put a stop to his insidious plans, when we as players, we don't see it the same way. We just see like this, not an idiot, but almost a total idiot. And I find that to be like an interesting thing to observe. If we think about today's sort of discourse on the internet, we see gaslighting all the time. Tons of examples. I'm not going to get into it, but we see tons of examples of people just like straight up lying to your face, pushing that until that feels like the reality of things. So anyway, that was the intro. Yep. So, and here is the finale. Hopefully the volume isn't as bad this time. So.
This must not be.
You have betrayed your duty as Arbiter, and shall be bound forevermore. Your madness has threatened the cycle of life and death entire.
You could have sought another way, brother. Imagine what we could have accomplished together.
Why, Zovar? What drove you to this end? You preserve that which is doomed. A cosmos divided will not survive. What is to come?
Oh, so it just closes. Oh, man, I was hoping for something like a little bit cooler to like bring us back, or to close things out. All right. Wait, what's your guys? What, some of your guys got problems with the cinematic. We're gonna get all sorts of strong reactions, comparisons to other games that tell a better story, and I'm not, you know, and they're right. I think trying to make a big deal out of it is just as, you know, is just even more cringe than what we had just seen. It was all right. It was a moment. The one thing that I would speculate would be not the last thing he said, but what he said before that. something like shit. I'll have to pull it up again. Where is it? Here we go.
Survive will not.
Nope, not that.
A cosmos divided.
That's my focus, is the whole divided cosmos part. Part of me thinks is that it's not going to be a single thing that's worse, but more that just the fact that it's divided is going to cause so much instability that things are going to fall apart. Not the most exciting thing, but I'm not, so far I'm not buying into a big bad behind the big bad behind the big bad behind the big bad. Looks like the next expansion is going to introduce some new cosmic threat, the real threat that somehow only Zaval saw. I mean, you might be right. Yeah, so it might be leading up to like another, immediately leading up to another thing. But I can also see, and this is my hope actually, my hope is that they would wait. We don't need to rush into like these cosmic things. There were certain catalysts that took place, you know, lately in Warcraft that led to this moment, but we're now at a stopping point, I suppose. Kind of like how the end of Legion gave us a sort of stopping point that we thought would have been addressed in a different way. Because it's like, hey, there's a big sword in Azeroth's back. What's going to happen? Now let's make a conflict out of it. I still believe very strongly that Azeroth is in need of like a break. You know, just kind of like a, let's sit for a moment and soak in all these things that are happening. Now we can go to the next big bad, sure, whatever. If that's what they want to go, that's where they feel like going. But as for when, that's where my concern lies. I think it can wait. I'm thinking huge light void on Azeroth conflict, which weakens us for the next cosmic thing. Yeah, my focus isn't on a single villain. My thought is, you know, I'm making shit up. Okay, I'm making this up, but it feels like Zaval doesn't see the cosmos being, you know, united, and that's going to cause a problem. I mean, right at the moment, there's only one more place to go, and that's the actual first ones. The first ones will be like, hey, you know what? This experiment of ours, it's no good. Fuck it. And then they want to reset everything. Kind of like what we've seen before. Like we saw it with, what's his name? Sparkly dude, Ulduar, who was going to re-originate the planet or something like that. It could be something like that where the first ones are like, you know, this sucks. Reset, and then Azeroth, you know, people of Azeroth, my level 90 character is gonna put a stop to it, right? I think that would be like the cosmic end game. Thing is though, I'm just not interested in the cosmic end game. If the next expansion is dressed like that, whatever. But as long as it's fun and it's cool, then I'm not gonna care what the story is. Alkaline, thank you. Maybe Blizzard actually has a plan to give breadcrumbs over a few expansions, and then down the road they show up. Historically, that hasn't really been the case. The best example that they came up with was Garrosh, born in Burning Crusade, built him up, set him up for a takedown. Which was kind of haphazard too, because some people were saying, "Oh, you know, it was a sudden shift because of who was in charge in the story." But as for the cinematic itself, no, that was cool. I didn't sucking in that copium or whatever you guys want to call it. I think we all like to think that we can make dramatic reactions to everything. Sometimes it's not as exciting as we think. Whether it's the reactions or whatever. Do you think there's more to the story after in this expansion? You guys are depressed. Damn, you guys are. I thought I had too much empathy for things. You guys are getting depressed over a cinematic? I'm getting depressed because Warcraft is the reason I'm a nerd. It's like seeing the man who made you want to become a fireman film advertisements for for cigarettes. All right. You're quite stoked for the new announcements. What are my predictions for the WoW expansion announcement? It could go in any direction, and I could probably pull out a thread and try to make shit, pull up tiny breadcrumbs that can lead into like something that might be new or not. Or I can take it in a totally different direction too. Some people seem to be seem to be having a mental crisis over it. Something y'all should know about me. I love the game. I enjoy playing it. You know, the story's fine, but I stop myself into getting like so into the story that I get emotionally invested into it. I thought it was fine. But again, it's because I don't put that emotional investment into it. Like I don't click expecting any sort of like emotional, oh my God. I don't expect to get touched by video game cinematics. And I've seen a lot of them. A lot of them are sad, really sad. A lot of cutscenes, very emotionally heavy, but I tend to put up a wall because I just don't let myself get affected by stuff like that. When things get through and people have seen them people have seen things that can get through to me, you know, there's that. That's the exception. That's very much the exception to the rule. But otherwise, yeah, one way or another, like you'll get some foot and mouth reactions like, oh, that was cool when what's his name? Shit. When Sarfang just snapped that dude's neck. You know, I get those, you know, I'll get those moments and reactions to it, but it doesn't really go beyond that because that's just not the kind of person that I am. I don't play World of Warcraft for the story. It was, you know, it's been good enough to keep me tugging along, but that's not what keeps me playing. It's not what keeps me invested. Come on, man, Ursox Fit. No, that's what I'm talking. That's exactly what I was talking about. I mean, y'all saw, for those of you who saw my reaction, you know when I can get affected by a cinematic, but but that has nothing to do with the fact that that it came from Warcraft. Has nothing to do with that. Yeah, when it came to Varians and Ysera's, like I thought I was like, oh, that's cool. But I didn't feel anything, right? Because I couldn't apply it to like some real life connection of, you know, no one close to me made a sacrifice play to save my life. Things like that haven't happened. So the emotional attachment isn't quite there. That's not a bad, but that doesn't make it bad. I guess what makes the jailer bad as a villain is that he's not relatable at all. At all. You know, a bunch of these villains that we've seen, not just in Warcraft, but in other places, who are like, oh, I'm just trying to save the universe from absolute destruction. That's something that we can't really fathom, right? It's not something that we can really connect with. Someone like Arthas, who we got more backstory on, and we got a bit more, you know, we got to know him a bit more before he became a villain. That's what, you know, that helps. That creates a bit better of an emotional connection. But sometimes it loses us too. Like once, you know, some would say like once Arthas picked up Frostmourne, then he became like a very like one-dimensional sort of villain. You know, Sylvanas felt complicated up to a certain point, and then she became, she became less interesting, or you know, she became very unpredictable and all that stuff. And so sometimes we can't really keep up with that. Other stories, other games, they do a much better job of keeping those villains by still giving those villains human qualities, even if they might have superpowers and stuff. You know, we see like this vulnerable side to them, and Warcraft doesn't pull it off. Seeing quotes and then turning it into, well, Blizzard has no plan, blah blah blah, and all that speculation. You know, that's one thing. But you know, just my reaction to these sorts of cinematics, that's what they are. They're just video games, unless it happens to break through all those defenses and gets to something that's close to me, then it becomes a lot more meaningful. But not exactly in the sense that it's a Warcraft thing. It's more of a personal thing. What I do find fascinating, about the jailer, and maybe I'll try to talk about this because I think I'm the only one. I don't know. No, I take that back. I'm probably not the only one. But see if you can relate with me on this. As a player, us, you, me, we see the jailer as this bumbling nobody. We see him out of nowhere. He says all this crap that makes no sense, and we as players judge them. But if we try, and it's hard to, if we try to put ourselves into the shoes of, say, Thrall, Jaina, people in game, we see this monolith of a dude who was able to just like summon all these dudes and one-shot dudes, and apparently, as far as it looks, he had this crazy plan. Somehow it looks like he manipulated everyone into making his way to Azeroth and all this stuff. It's like the characters in the game, because they don't have that third person perspective that we have, they see the jailer as like this amazing tactician who was able to get this close to ending everything because of his machinations and his so-called plans and all these things that he did. But we know, and probably the jailer knows, how much he fucked up on all sorts of other things. It just happened to be that the circumstances that we as players have seen, that the characters on Azeroth have experienced, those are the things that led to these final moments. And in that way, it makes the jailer feel like an effective villain to someone who's there, boots on the ground. Your shit's been dominated and all that stuff. We as players, though, and I would say that we are the more important audience. We may come away from this feeling unimpressed. It's like, oh, this is it. This dude is lying to your face. These are my plans, and this is everything. I put all this stuff together, and something mortals. I hate that phrasing, but he's just straight up gaslighting these characters in front of their faces, and they believe it because they have no frame of reference. We as players would be like, dude, I've heard this shit before. You can't just say that kind of crap. I'm not buying into this at all. So we're not buying into it. And I'd say we're the more important audience because NPCs don't pay the bills. They don't sub to the game. We do. Does that make sense? Anything that I just said there? That there's like a really big disconnect, or there's a big difference in perspective. And unfortunately, we can react in ways that maybe the WoW team doesn't like. But I can at least sort of understand why the jailer would like speak the way that he does, and why that could seem intimidating. The jailer sucks because we have no idea what his motivation is. For him to suddenly say we can't survive, what's to come, blah blah blah. Dude's been monologuing since whatever. See, some people are seeing that as there's a big bad, another big bad. I don't see that, not yet at least. It's easy to assume, but I don't see that. I see it as the instability between these great powers is going to, it's just a house of cards that's waiting to crumble. He was hoping to solve it by reshaping everything. That didn't work. And if there is going to be a big bad, it's going to be the first ones who are like, oh, this isn't working out very great at all. Everything's all fucked up. We're going to end everything. So it's going to be like kind of the jailer plot all over again, which would be remarkably boring, right? So part of me is thinking that the thing that we can't survive would be just the chaos that would come from not having balance among these cosmic powers. They're all fighting for dominance in their own way. At some point, if even one thing wins, then everything just breaks down. So that's my interpretation of what's to come, which doesn't sound as exciting, but it also sounds better than pulling back the curtain and be like, OMG, now it's this. I wonder if they intended to sell the jailer more, but we were just unable to spend the time they needed due to the pandemic and having to reduce to just two patches. I thought about this since Warlords, but I wouldn't want to be anyone on the narrative team. Constantly getting the rug pulled from under your feet with patches getting cut and changing the story has to feel terrible to work around. I mean, I think we've seen historically that the story does need to give way for gameplay purposes. He basically just appeared, monologued, and got his ass beat at every turn of the expansion. He's just not accomplished anything that we can see. But that's not the reality of it, though. The reality of it is that he did eventually set something in motion. And he, things happened on Azeroth that led to this to Azeroth and Argus, that led to this moment of him being at the gates and starting to vacuum suck Azeroth. And that was it. So to say that he didn't accomplish anything, no, that's not true. I do hope the next expansion is more simple and not as complicated as Shadowlands is. Too many things. Yeah, I think if I were to say in so few words what Shadowlands' problem was, is that it was too abstract. It was way too foreign. It introduced way too many new things and higher level things all at once. And it's too much to handle. This is one of those examples where WoW tells its story way too fast. Way too fast. So I get why people are coming away like dissatisfied and all that stuff, but some of the foot and mouth like lull blizz things, those are just, to me, those just come off as distasteful and trolly. And so if there was anything that I was truly disappointed by, is that the hole just closes. That's it. That to me, that was doo-doo. I'm like, is that all? I had so many cooler ideas. We still don't know where the fuck Nathanos is. We still don't know where Nathanos is. Is he like a mythic only phase or something like that? I don't fucking know. But yeah, kind of a bummer. That's my thing. Where the hell is Nathanos?